Everybody, good morning and welcome. The point of today was just to kind of take you guys through the entrepreneurial landscape, kind of look at how things are in Africa compared to the rest of the world, discuss the emerging African opportunities that we have, compare that a little bit to where we are, the UK entrepreneurial scene, and then take it out to look at the global opportunities. So look at trends in the global entrepreneurial ecosystem, such as the rise of the gig economy, AI-driven innovation, green technology, things that are really beginning now to, to mushroom and really blow up, as we say in Africa. There begin to dive into some of the other things that one might need, creativity and innovation, resilience, all of that, in order to kind of prepare yourself. If you wanted to run a business that would survive in a global economy, what you need. So my question to you guys really is, how is the economic outlook in your country? What does it look like in Tanzania? What does it look like in Ghana? Yeah. Thank you so much. So a very, very dismal and kind of pessimistic outlook from the West, whereas from the East, it seems to be a little bit more, optimistic. I mean, if we look at the outlook, we see a lot of economic vulnerability, so heavy reliance on imports. And when you have that, it's no surprise that a heavy reliance on imports will make the economy susceptible to external shocks like currency devaluation, trade restrictions, global market instability. And you see that domestic industries will struggle to compete. It actually stunts the economic growth and innovation. It also makes, lack of job opportunities will, you'll have high unemployment, which is what you're reporting, certainly from Sierra Leone and Ghana, and that will result in widespread poverty. Is no surprise that people aren't even, in a Christmas spirit at this time, because the purchasing power of the population has been reduced. And of course, you've talked about skilled workers wanting to emigrate. That kind of brain drain is horrible, because even though there are very few jobs, if you deplete the workforce further, you'll leave fewer qualified professionals to address those local challenges that you're talking about. And then to top it off, there's a lot of political instability. And that kind of uncertainty, of course, will deter your foreign investment and business confidence. But then even in the country, entrepreneurs or people who want to start businesses will face challenges like corruption, regulatory inconsistencies, lack of infrastructure, those sort of things. I mean, we can go on and on and on. The one thing that I recognize that often happens, which a lot of people don't talk about, but which is real and which really even makes things worse, is that it affects the mental health, of the people. Economic hardship always makes mental health issues worse. It affects productivity, it affects creativity, and it affects workforce morale. And yeah, because people have high levels of stress. So when you're in that kind of instability, it will hinder long-term planning, and people then take more risks. And that's not what we want. But it's not all bad news, because every time you have these kinds of situations, what you find is that there are huge opportunities for entrepreneurs in stagnant or even growing economies. And I want to just give you guys a few, I'd like us to really discuss them, or anyone that you're not very sure about. We can expand a lot. But when it comes to opportunities in your economies, a few really jump out based on the things that you have said. The first for me, is import substitution. Begin to invest in producing goods locally to reduce dependency on imports. Anything that you find that people, really like and they buy a lot of, but it comes from overseas, look into that thing and begin to, produce it. Think about how you can produce it locally. Now, the biggest examples will be your agriculture, manufacturing, renewable energy industries. These are places, things that we know definitely that all economies will need, and you will never, ever go out of business if you invest in those areas. But it also means that you can leverage local resources and talent. You can be one of those taking advantage of what's left, deploying them in those areas. And because you're producing things that people are reliant on, it will definitely, give you a good source of income, but you'll also be solving the problems that you have. The second thing I want to encourage you to do is begin to think about solving pain points. Now, challenges like hunger, unemployment, lack of infrastructure creates demand for innovative solutions. So think about food security projects, think about affordable housing, think about healthcare solutions, to address these urgent needs. You may not be able to start it by yourself, but you can think about how you partner with people already doing stuff. Don't think about taking on like big things that might be difficult. Think about people who are already doing them. And if they're not in some areas, perhaps you can try to expand it into those areas. Remember, the good thing is that most of you have been on the training courses. And the one thing I always say is, if you can find a need and meet it, you will never be out of business. So think about pain points. What are those pain points? And how can you solve them? That's what you must begin to do. And as you do that, you want to leverage technology. So think about digital platforms that you can use now. The world is now becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. And so you find that selling online will be really low cost. There are low cost entry points now for entrepreneurs to access new markets and to streamline your operations. Think about the whole country. Remotely. You can even have online education platforms to address brain drill and skill development gaps. There's so many things you can do, but whatever you do, there's never been a better time in history to actually leverage technology. Okay, I'll carry on with regards to the opportunities that we began to talk about. So I spoke about three. I talked about import substitution, solving pain points, and leveraging technology. A couple more will be youth empowerment. So think about the fact that there's a lot of untapped potential with unemployed youth. If you can establish training programs, upskilling centers, or mentorship initiatives, this can really help you and help your country. Because what you want to do is begin to create avenues for youth engagement, and that can lead to motivated and innovative, young people, and that would definitely feed into the workforce. The other thing also, the other opportunity potentially in your landscapes would be the green economy. When we talk about the green economy, we're talking about renewable energy projects, things that can address energy insecurity whilst you're benefiting from global green funding initiatives. Because right now, a lot of money in the global north is trying to address or being, channeled towards the green economy. If you can develop eco-friendly products, or you can partner with those who are providing eco-friendly services to meet either local demand or even global demand, that would be wonderful. That is a huge opportunity, I have to say. And then another one, and I think this will be the final one that I'll land on, will be export-oriented industries. If you can find locally produced goods to export to international markets, that can definitely bring in foreign exchange and it'll increase business growth. Think about things like fashion, processed foods, crafts. All of these things have huge global appeal right now and growth potential. And I wonder if in any of your countries you've seen that, and if there's anything at all in any of these areas that I've talked about that you think might actually be possible. And let's discuss it a little bit more. All right, there's one thing, there are a number of things when you go into business, there are a number of things to bear in mind. The first one I said was making sure you're meeting a need. If you meet a need, you will always be in business because, yeah. The second thing that you should also try to do, no matter who you are, is to try to diversify your income streams. you can't rely on one thing. It's just like we say, you can't put all your eggs in one basket, because you understand. So the whole point of this is to encourage you to look in other places. The more income streams you have, the more likely you are to survive the shocks that life will throw at you. Okay. So that's really important. Let me just suggest a number of things, because hopefully today you've your mind has been prompted on a number of things. But in terms of taking advantage of the opportunities that you have around you, the number of really interesting or important steps that you need to take. The first will be researching and identifying the gaps that are there. You must conduct a market analysis to identify the most pressing local challenges, whether it's food insecurity, whether it's unemployment, whether it's lack of affordable services, whatever it is, don't skip that. Doing some research to help you identify the gaps is really important, because what you want to do with that is you want to evaluate the places, the opportunities, the industries that have the highest growth potential or the greatest need for innovation. Sometimes something's there already, so maybe you don't need to start it, but it might have a need for innovation to accelerate it. So that's what researching does for you. It helps you to evaluate industries with the highest potential, but also it enables you to study what has worked before. If you can figure out what the successful models in similar economies are, it will give you inspiration. There's no need to reinvent the wheel ever. There's nothing new under the sun. People have gone ahead of you. Hopefully, they've made a lot of mistakes so that you can learn from it. So if you can study successful models, it will give you inspiration, and then you can adapt it. So that's the first thing to do. Research and identify your gaps. The second thing you want to do is begin to build a business model around solutions. So remember that we talked about all those opportunities that you can take advantage of. Once you've researched and you've identified the gaps, what you now want to do is begin to develop a very clear value proposition that will address those specific local points. So are you going to offer a locally sourced alternative to imports, for instance? What is it you're going to do? You want to make sure that your value proposition is very, very clear. And usually when we deliver the WSEP program, the World Changers Entrepreneurship Training Program, we teach you about strategic business development. We teach you how to develop your value proposition. We get you to think about the 5 questions that you need to be asking when you're building your business plan. So I'm not going to go into that, but it's really important to make sure that your value proposition is clear and that you have a lean but flexible business model that will minimize your overhead and will allow you to scale as your conditions improve. So make sure that as you start out, your costs are minimized. You really do not want to increase costs. You don't want the cost to be anything you can't handle, because you're trying to test something that works. Make sure it's lean enough, but also make sure that you have very clear processes so that if you want to scale, once your conditions improve, you're able to do that. All right. And then, of course, trying to explore different models. You don't always have to have like a pure business model or pure charity. You can have a hybrid model like a social enterprise. So you're combining profitability with community impact. That's so important, especially in the world that we live in. And there's so many reasons for this, obviously, but I believe that social enterprises actually have the best opportunity to have the greatest impact whilst combating some of the challenges we talked about. The other things I've talked about leveraging technology. I talked to you about that. I want to talk about partnering, with others. Collaboration is too important. How can you partner with local organizations, with communities, with government bodies? You really want to build trust, you want to enhance credibility, and also because alone, there's very little you can do. But once you begin to partner, think about a piece of thread or a cord. On its own, it might have a little bit of strength, But imagine if there are three that are wound together, it's so much stronger. Partnerships are so strong. So identify partnerships that you can work with. All right. Think about local talent that you can use, to reduce your costs. Think about how you can begin, to engage in initiatives that might improve the local infrastructure that you have. Because honestly, infrastructure is where all of these things fall down. So if there's any way that you can actually join, like maybe cooperatives, small scale farming, energy projects, any of those things, anything you can do to really strengthen that, you want to do that. And then the other thing also you want to do is to secure funding, begin to attract investors. But to do that, you have to make sure that you're having impact. And that's why I suggested the social enterprise model. Most people will really be attracted to an organization that's not just making money, but solving problems. And that's how we started. Remember that. We started by looking at the landscape and identifying the opportunities. And so you really want to make sure that whatever your business pitch is, you're emphasizing the high impact potential and the scalability, because that really gets a lot of people involved. As an individual, the one thing I want to encourage you to do is to strengthen your own resilience. All right. Because it's so important. Life always happens. Things are always happening. And so you find that you're juggling whatever work you're doing with a lot of things that are happening in your own life. So I want you to think about, first of all, for the businesses that you're running, create contingency plans to manage risks. And those risks look around. If there's political instability, if there's inflation, other economic challenges, yes. But also, what about with you, your own budgeting, monitoring your cash flow, making sure that you're actually looking at the business and ensuring that you're putting things that allows your business to flex. But the final thing, which is not least important, is just as important, is to focus on your own mental and emotional well-being. I talked about the impact of having these kinds of economies and how it challenges people's mental health and their emotional well-being. You must invest in your own well-being, because you have to sustain your motivation. You have to sustain your creativity in difficult environments. That's really, really important. So these are things that I want you to think about doing. That's fine. Okay, well, listen, just to finish, let me give you guys a few tips on resilience. So the three different areas of resilience that I talked about was, managing risks. I also talked about, building financial resilience. And then the last one was focusing on your mental and emotional well-being. I mean, when it comes to creating plans to manage risks, one thing you must know in life is that storms will come. That's just life. Life is never certain. And so being prepared for uncertainty is essential, especially in the economic and political climates where you guys live, because it's quite volatile. You need a robust contingency plan to help you to avoid and look after the risks, but also to ensure business continuity. I mean, a couple of things that you can do for sure right now. The first is to make sure you're avoiding over-reliance on any single supplier, any single country, anything, any vendor, any relationship that has to do with your business. Don't ever be reliant on one. Because if you are, potentially, if anything happens to them, you will have disruption. Okay, so as much as possible, you want to make sure that you have various suppliers. You want to diversify your supply chain, but also negotiate flexible contracts if you have contracts, just to adjust supply if you need to, because depending on how the business is going. You also want to make sure that you're monitoring whatever is happening, because every political development, regulatory updates will always affect what you're doing. So you must stay updated on policies. trade laws, political changes, anything that could impact your business. You cannot afford to be ignorant. All right. If you have the opportunity, join industry groups or chambers of commerce, because they'll keep you informed about any changes and any potential, like maybe efforts that are being taken, Then you want to also start thinking about identifying worst case, best case, most likely scenarios. Honestly, if you've never done like a SWOT analysis, you should. SWOT stands for strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. It's to help you to evaluate and prioritize your risks. And then if you can, try and get insurance. Ensure that your business or anything you're doing is adequately insured against risks. It's so important, like theft, damage, liability, anything at all. If you have the opportunity to take out insurance. If you're building financial resilience, I talked about prioritizing your cash flow management. I mean, you have to make sure you understand, keep a detailed cash flow forecast. You must track everything coming into your business and everything going out. And then you have to try and keep, reserve funds. It's so important, emergency funds. If you've never done it before, make sure you're doing it. And I talked about diversifying your revenue streams. And of course, budgeting. You have to make sure that you're doing that. Also, look at your business and think about how you can optimize efficiency. Are there areas where you can cut costs, but you don't compromise quality? Do it if you can, because it just helps you. So if you can do regular reviews just to keep thinking about inefficiencies, that would be great. And then if you're saving any money, save it. Don't be tempted to just go and spend it immediately, because you must have some kind of buffer. Then when it comes to your mental and emotional well-being, remember what I said. If you have a resilient mindset, it will help you. And if you have other people working with you to stay motivated, it'll help you stay creative and productive, no matter how challenging things become. So try and avoid burnout, okay? Have work-life boundaries, especially if you're a solo entrepreneur, all right? Practice self-care, regular exercise, healthy eating, adequate sleep. These 3 things you don't need money to buy. You can go for a walk to clear your head. You can eat well. Make sure you're just, eating well. Everyone understands what eating well means. Fruits and vegetables, the things that are good for your body, eat them. And sleep. Try and rest as much as possible. If you know how to do mindful practices like meditation, deep breathing, those things can help to reduce stress as well. But also see if you can get support networks, build relationships with people that can help you on your journey, like mentors, peers, people. We have the WhatsApp groups, engage with them and get support from your peers as well. And then when you can, celebrate small wins, no matter how small. If you have a milestone, celebrate it, because that will help you to have a sense of accomplishment. If you can keep a journal to reflect your progress during tough times, that's also good. And then learn how to manage your emotions and to respond calmly under pressure. And if you need professional help, don't hesitate. At the end of the day, therapists and counselors, whether, they're in the hospital or in church, wherever, if you need somebody, if you've got stress, anxiety, or depression, don't allow it to become overwhelming. Talk to somebody regularly. You will find that that will really help you. The key thing is that you need to be proactive in preparing for risks. Don't allow it to happen to you before you start trying to find help. Try and, as much as possible, mitigate it. There'll be things that you cannot control, but what you can control, please try your best to be in control of it. Okay?
Okay.
So that's it. We wanted to give you guys a taster course for today.
We also want to say thank you for Avocado Foundation for championing the cause of giving young Africans tools to be able to be relevant and impactful, both to themselves and that of their various communities and then countries as well. Many young people are exposed on the internet, but the productivity skills and things that we need to survive and make a difference and compete with the people of the world, we have it. And so Avocado Foundation championing this thing across Africa and some other countries. I think that you deserve a very strong commendation as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric. That's very kind of you. Thank you. Okay. All righty. I think that's it. We will say goodbye to you now. Thank you so much. As always, we appreciate you joining us. We're excited about the potential of working with you all in the future. If you want us to come to your country to deliver training, please do chat to Helen about that in 2025, and we'll see what we can do. Okay, all the best. Thank you so much, everyone.